What's going on, bros? Welcome to another Bra Mithra video. Today, we're going to be talking about Kingdom Death 2nd Edition, Kingdom Death 2.0. When is it coming? What can we expect? And generally, what are our thoughts?
So yes, we're going to talk about 2.0, the no longer fabled 2.0. We know it is coming eventually. We do not know when. We saw lots of references to 2.0 as we were doing our Lantern Year in review from the 2023 Black Friday to the 2024 Black Friday. 2.0 was a looming thing in the background. It slowly became more upfront as we went through the updates, and that was not really in what we wanted to talk about for the Lantern Year review because it was a lot of speculation, and that point of the last two, the part one and part two, was mainly to focus on what actually did happen, not to speculate what could happen. So we decided to, it'd be more fun to talk about 2.0 in its own video rather than try to talk about this whole deal while covering each month.
Yeah, this is a long one, so it those videos were already long enough, so it just makes sense to kind of cut it out and have a discussion just around that specifically.
Yeah, we were going to talk about, because the card pack was also mentioned a lot too. That probably will be its own video as well as what we think will be the card pack. But for this video, we'll do just 2.0, the new version of the core game, what we'd like to see from it, what we think will be included, and what we would like to see.
So this is something I've wanted to talk about. It came up kind of a few times when we've been recording other videos in the past. And I've been talking about it a little bit in Lantern's Reign as well, just trying to see people's thoughts. And I don't know, I was being a little bit cheeky sometimes with the way I was replying to users, trying to incite them. I have some pretty strong feelings about 2nd Edition or 2.0. And I don't think that it is they're kind of a hot take, I'd say. It's not something that everybody agrees with in my conversations I've had with them. But I thought it'd be cool to have a video and discuss some of this stuff and see if we agree or disagree on kind of, I guess, what the expectations are for 2.0.
I don't think we agree on how it will happen.
No, definitely not.
No. So to be more clear, I think that there will be... See, I don't think... there will be another card pack, right? We already know there's going to be another card pack. You don't deny there's another card pack coming.
No, he was pretty upfront about that in the last update.
Yes. I think the next card pack will happen, and I think the next card pack will touch things in core, for sure. I think it won't be as big as 1.6. I don't think it's going to do a core game update, but I think there's going to be quite a lot of a run. Well, you know what? I'll say there will be a core game update, but it won't be as big as 1.6. The 1.6 core game update was quite large, with the perfect resources and all that stuff. Changing to settlement locations and things. Outside of errata, I don't think that's going to happen. There was a bunch of new gear added. Universal gear. I don't think that will be as big, but I do think there will be things in the card pack. I think there will be another version of the game that's not 2.0. I think there will be a stopgap in between there. So that's our main disagreement.
Yeah, and so I guess my stance on it is that we've already passed 1.6 as a version of the game. And I'd like to get into that a little bit more, if that's okay.
Yeah.
But
first, what? So what do you think is in the card pack? Just so you know, so people can gauge what you think 2.0 is versus what the next card pack will be.
Okay, that's fair. So my expectations for Legendary Card Pack 2 is I don't actually expect it to be touching the core game that much. I think it's going to be mostly fixes related to Gambler's Chest, to some of the Black Knight content that we've seen has had issues. Hopefully, some of the Frog Dog stuff that's had some issues. And then I'm hoping that we see a lot of these old seed pattern cards that were released in white boxes get fixed. So we saw them get updated with like the 10th anniversary survivors were updated and the cards were changed. So I'm expecting like that we get those cards in this as well as some of the other ones. So that would be like the Halloween White Speaker and the Easter Aya. Some of these the older seed pattern cards pre GCE.
Insight up all the insight seeds, all the insight patterns updated to seed pattern.
Yeah, right. And then they've already mentioned that we're going to see the false messengers cards will be in the card pack as well as the promos of death cards. So those are just kind of like a free space in bingo, I guess, for what could be in the card pack. But I don't think the Legendary Card Pack 2 is going to be as robust as Legendary Card Pack 1 was.
I don't want to talk too much about the card pack. There's a lot of stuff that I think will be in the card pack. We can do a video on what we think will be in the card pack, because I think there's lots of things in Gambler's Chest that need to be looked upon, and how they might handle that. I think card packs are good for the game. I know a lot of people also think card packs are good for the game. It was teased that even Poots thought that maybe yearly card packs will be necessary. I don't think yearly card packs will be necessary, but I think you should probably look to doing them after you get a lot of expansions out, like a big one. I think one after GCE is good, which is would be this one, and I think you're fine waiting till COD, and then maybe a year after COD, and then fix all the stuff from COD, Red Witches, Pariah, all those expansions, and then maybe do one more before 2.0. Yeah. I don't think you need to do yearly, but I know Poots has been open to it, and I agree.
Yeah, I think it depends on how much stuff releases between now and COD releasing, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, depending on that, like there could be a requirement for a card pack pre-COD or one after that encapsulates everything between now and then. I guess it just depends. Yeah. So we're recording this a couple days before the March update.
Yeah.
So this is really subject to change. I guess some of these thoughts that we have, depending on how that timeline update.
Yeah.
So shakes out, right?
The same disclaimer that we just did on our part 1 and part 2 of the year look back, where we put disclaimer this could change through the timeline. Now,
yeah, for sure.
And a disclaimer again, this could change after the timeline.
Yeah, so before we started recording, I was talking about how like some of my thoughts towards the card pack, like in a couple days, could be completely annihilated. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll just see. We'll see how my thoughts change on it. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll do a video that's talking about the card pack. But basically, I think some of the things that you bring up that you say should be in 2.0, I think they should be in the card pack.
I guess before we get into a larger conversation about 2.0, I just wanted to clarify the timeline of Kingdom Death versions that have already been released, just so we kind of have that baseline of like what has been released, what can we expect, and like where are we now compared to what versions have been released, I guess. So the first version of Kingdom Death was 1.0, and this is the version that was shown off in the first Kickstarter, but it was never officially released to the public as far as I know. So if you go to the Kingdom Death YouTube channel, for example, he showcases some of the cards that are in the White Lion or with the White Lion or in the core game. But they have like different backings. Basically, 1.0 was like the beta edition almost of Kingdom Death. And it changed quite a bit. The version that was released to the public was 1.3. So this was the official release that came out during the first Kickstarter or at the end of the first Kickstarter. And all of Expansions of Death 1 were designed in this 1.3 environment. Eventually, when the second Kickstarter came out, the game was updated to 1.5, and we also got the release of the 1.5 update kit. So this included the Gold Smoke Knight and a bunch of card changes. And anybody that had purchased 1.3 could purchase...
There was a 1.3.1 in between there.
Was there?
Yeah, it was. It changed like a settlement. No, yeah, it changes like the Lantern Horde, right? And then also changed
Like you
Butcher.
mean just on the like the FAQ
Yeah,
or on the
yeah,
website?
yep.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I don't know if I
Well, I'm just
like.
saying.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's an update to the game. Like, but
Mhm.
it wasn't like an officially wasn't an official designed like designation, right?
I think it was
Like you're
called like
just
1.3.1, kind of like what we are now, 1.6.1, right?
yeah. But I mean, that's not canon. I guess canon. I shouldn't even say that. But the main thing is that the 1.5 update kit was released, so that players that had the 1.3 core game could just purchase this. It was kind of like the legendary card pack almost, right? Like it had changes to the game that you and just told you to
Well,
swap out cards or add cards to certain settlements and added the Gold Smoke Knight.
yeah, I was about to say
That's the
yeah.
finale.
It came with a monster, but yes, it was like 1.6 card
Yeah.
pack.
So after that, we got the 1.6 edition, which was legendary card pack. And after that had happened, we eventually got like the core game 1.6 and then expansions of death 1.6. So there were several updates to expansions of death and the core game in legendary card pack, and that was 1.6. And then, kind of as we just alluded to, you and I have this unofficial designation for 1.6.1, which we thought was worth defining because the 1.6 updates of expansion of death. So these are the actual expansions you would purchase from the shop, had changes that were not included in the legendary card pack. So these were things like the reward sections of monsters and changes to some of the data cards, and then rules changes to Giga Lion. So all of these releases kind of immediately after 1.6, there was like an additional update to 1.6.
Yes, correct.
So recently, when I was talking about 2.0 in Lantern's Reign, one of the users, Dilerius, he asked me if, or I should say they asked me if GCE is not 2.0. So they were suggesting that 2.0 is already Gambler's Chest. And that question really like took me off guard because to me it's obvious that Gambler's Chest is not second edition, but it's also not 1.6. Because it's adding so much to the game, right? So with the release of Gambler's Chest, we got additional core game rules added, the introduction of maneuvers. They weren't really defined, but we know they exist, like the concept of disarm tokens, encounters, scouts, wanderers, pillars, synchronic attacks, vibration damage, characters, patterns and seed patterns, indomitable resources, all these kind of systems that are like they're kind of core game systems. They're not exclusive systems to Gambler's Chest, right?
They are
So I
even
think that's
described as core game, yes, even in by
yeah.
the Gambler's Chest rules, correct.
So I think this elevates the game, like these systems being added, elevates the game past this 1.6 level. So
I agree.
yeah, in the February update, Adam had joked in the community garden about like, oh, we can't make second edition until like 1.666 comes out, right?
Correct.
So I'm thinking, is the content of Gambler's Chest, is that already technically at that level where we could call it like 1.6.666 or however we want to make the joke?
Yes.
And
we are in a middle ground. This is a this is yes. It's a middle ground created by 1.6 expansions, pretty much, and by Gambler's Chest.
so then my question would be like, what is Campaigns of Death? Like it's adding even more content to this kind of core game rule set, right? So does that elevate this to something closer to second edition? Like are we getting to 1.8 or 1.9 at that level before 2.0 comes out, right? Like these aren't like official, version numbers of the game, but it's clear that it's progressing towards kind of a revamp of the core game, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree. That's why I said I think we pretty much agree. That's why I didn't want to get into what I think is needed in a card pack. I think we agree. It's more of a timing issue where we don't agree on. I think a card pack is needed because we're in this middle ground. Rather than pushing the game forward to 2.0, I think 2.0 would be best served waiting until maybe after COD or something like that, when you could acclimate all these changes in a big swoop and get it done in the 2.0 version of the game. But I think we do need an update. Yes, I think we need like a 1.8 or somewhat at 1.7.
I think this is kind of fundamentally where we disagree is again the timing, right? So and this will hopefully be revealed in a couple days here, but what are your expectations for COD releasing?
Oh, my expectations for COD releasing? Not this year. I don't think we'll have it this year. I don't think we'll have it before Gen Con next year. Maybe right around Gen Con.
And my expectations are that we'll have it this year. Hopefully, I don't think it's going to be Gen Con this year. I'm thinking it's going to be Black Friday, and if not, Gen Con next year at minimum, or at maximum, I guess. At maximum,
I was going to say minimum. You literally gave a date before that. So.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't expect them to show up to Gen Con empty-handed. So I think they're reprinting 1.6s now to bring them to Gen Con.
Yeah, and I kind of disagree with that because I think it's too close to justify additional reprints of 1.6. Like, I think it'll just become expensive for them to do that. Anyway, I don't want to jump into that too soon. That was kind of what I wanted to talk about later, but the first time second edition was mentioned, the question that was asked was, you've stated that you would consider remodels of White Lion, Screaming Antelope, and Phoenix. Do you have a timeline for this? And if so, will it just be a model or some additional gameplay? And then he just wrote second edition with a ton of exclamation marks.
Yeah, okay. So that's the line.
And then you took it as a joke, but I mean, like, he's been thinking about it since 2023 at minimum, right?
Sure.
So the follow-up question in that same community garden was, will the original monsters and expansions get their own indomitable resources and pattern gear? And he had said they very well might. This could, I think, either be a reference to second edition or just alluding to the idea that we've got these indomitable survivors that are releasing regularly now.
Sure, but I mean, that was later confirmed to be in COD.
I don't think there's indomitable resources for core game monsters confirmed in COD. So the community garden also had another question in it that talked about cooking and was just generally asking for an update on the cooking system. And this one I'm not saying is specifically like evidence for 2.0, but I thought maybe it kind of leans towards it a little bit. But him just saying like, oh, the dark chef has plans for a cookbook of death one day. So, you know, that's something that we could technically see in second edition as a revamp of the cooking story event. If you're going to do it without changing it kind of fundamentally, that'd probably be the easiest way. And, you know, through the campaigns of death updates, we've seen that they're very open to adjusting things to become monster agnostic. And I
just never thought about 2.0 fixing cooking. I don't even know.
And I think we may see maybe hints of how cooking could be changed based on the Aeneas Wanderer. I'm kind of expecting like that's going to be first before any of this, right?
I agree.
So it could very well be fixed there, maybe.
I think cooking is interesting. I never thought about cooking getting fixed, and mainly I didn't think about cooking getting fixed because I wrote it off as that is the problem. The cooking is too dependent on core, so I never even thought about it.
The next piece of evidence that I have for 2.0 is from the 2024 Gen Con update, where in the community garden somebody had asked, are there any plans to release updated versions of the original core armor sets with the more narrative style of the recent kits akin to GCE and the later ones? And Adam had said, I'm not ready to answer this one yet, but keep on the lookout. So to me, that's, you know, that could be, oh, we're going to release narrative miniatures outside as like independent products, but to me, that's kind of another like nod towards the idea of second edition, because
Well,
I do think, it's going to include Survivor miniatures, obviously. So
you didn't think there was a tease of the Black Friday update?
In what sense?
The guy in full rawhide with the rawhide whip.
You know what? I didn't even consider that guy, but you're right. That could just be like a second edition miniature. I hadn't even really thought about that, because everybody had leaned so heavily into that being like part of the Nucleope vignette, right?
I think it is.
You think it's part of the vignette?
Yeah.
But even then, I think, like if they were to release a second edition of the game, they're not going to do the armor sets anymore, right? Like they would
that guy's definitely narrative, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, even if that guy is part of the Nucleope vignette or not, like the new core game would have narrative miniatures in it to represent all of these figures.
Yes.
Probably, like starting survivors in the new scale. Everything would be updated.
Yes.
So to me, it's like, yeah, like whether that miniature is not, that's a great piece of evidence, because like I'm in this conversation, I don't think that he's going to be in the Nucleope vignette, because he doesn't feel special enough, if that's a fair comment to make. Vignettes to me are supposed to represent these crazy story moments, I guess, in Kingdom Death, right? Like the White Lion, I don't know. It's weird because we only have a sample size of 2, but the White Lion or White Giga Lion seems like it was kind of an experiment into like what that is. Whereas Millennium is focusing on these really kind of important characters to the story of Kingdom Death. And to me, I think vignettes are the perfect playground to explore those really important story elements. And it feels like going forward, things will be more representative of Millennium than of Giga Lion. Like we'll have like these special miniatures that are quite unique in the way that they look, whereas that character just looks like he looks like a miniature you could build with an armor set, just as a narrative figure.
Oh, I totally agree.
Team Death, they did their event where they're hosting games, and they brought a variety of these event cards as just like traits and resources, just random stuff. And some of these were exclusive to the event that was being hosted. Like they had like clauses on the cards that said like your event deliberator can do such and such a thing. But I believe that,
for clarity, they are all currently event exclusive.
Yeah, they are. But I think like some are obviously like meant for events, right?
Yeah,
like
for beta testing. You mentioned this in the other video. Yes.
Right. Yeah. So again, like a lot of these, or a few of these cards that we've seen, a lot of them we haven't even seen. They seem like they are, to me, they're very clearly teasing future content. So the ones that specifically I want to call out is the Razor Maggot Strange Resource, and then the Thrown Weapon Specialization card. So those to me are something that can easily be slotted into second edition. In addition to that, the next month, right after Gen Con, September 2024 update, we got a new Death High miniature, and that was the White Lion Principal. Like the White Lion Principal, the White Lion's head is beautifully sculpted. Like it makes the White Lion from the core game look embarrassing in how detailed it is and just how kind of expressive it is. It takes the White Lion from being like just a lion miniature with messed up teeth to being like this very like brutish looking like lion, I guess. It is a lion. But I think this was a really clever way for them to tease like updated monster sculpts for second edition. What's kind of been alluded to, or what's been said directly, was of course the February 2025 update. So there's 2 questions that were asked in the community garden for that month, and the first one was, are you planning an update to the core game like last time, or just a reprint of the current version? The answer was very like non-committal. So they had said our official news letter would be the best place for you to go for news on the core game. We have always valued both ensuring that all your Kingdom Death content remains compatible and to improving the overall playing experience. So you can be assured that if there are any changes that are made to the core game, we will have a way for more experienced players to easily access or easily update their game, such as the Legendary Card Pack. And then the next question immediately after that was, any comment on version 2.0 of the core game? and he had said, when we haven't even released Kingdom Death 1.665 or Kingdom Death 1.666 yet. So we kind of talked about that a little bit earlier, in that, you know, Gambler's Chest and COD in the future will definitely have elevated the core game experience past this 1.6, you know, level. So it's like, is Gambler's Chest technically 1.666? Is COD, you know, like where does it fall? We're, like you said, we're in this, like, you know, kind of what's that word? It's like not heaven, not hell. We're like in this purgatory of Kingdom Death monster editions.
Nah, I mean, I don't think it's that bad. I think the card pack, again, this is where I think the main disagreement that we have here is, I think there will be a stopgap before we get to 2.0, because it's needed. I feel it's needed, whereas you don't feel it's as needed as much, and they should just get to 2.0 because you think it's coming sooner. Then I think, I know you asked me when I think we're getting COD. I don't think we're getting 2.0 until after COD. If if we get it during the Kickstarter. I'm also not completely convinced we get it during still Kickstarter 2 fulfillment.
I do feel like a card pack can't handle a lot of stuff that'll make the game feel outdated, though. Like,
yeah, I agree.
Like I said, like I gave that list earlier, like the content that was introduced in Gambler's Chest already makes some of the content in the core game feel outdated, right?
Yes.
Like
I
pursue
agree.
And maneuvers and
I agree.
disarm tokens, like synchronic attacks. You and I both agree that all of these kind of features could easily be inserted into core game quarries to, one, make it feel more consistent, and two, improve the experience of the core game, right?
Yes.
And then you look at what Campaigns of Death is going to introduce. So we're getting like pillars, we're getting strains, we're getting synergies, and then we're getting updates to all the Echoes of Death 1 monsters, to these GCE Echoes of Death 2, or no, sorry, not Echoes of Death. The Expansions of Death Monsters 1 and Expansions of Death Monsters 2 will be at the same standard, right, with GCE. So everything
that's the dream.
Yeah, I mean, like everything that it's going to exist, like in the updated ecosystem, is just going to make the core game feel so like outdated and just like, you know, why would I want to play the White Lion when I can play Crimson Croc or Titan Bee or, you know, whatever other Node 1, you know, quarry monsters get slipped in at some point or another. Frog Dog. If there's any scope creep, we don't know, but it's just like, it doesn't make sense to me that they wouldn't be trying to push a 2.0 update to the game as soon as possible, especially considering that they've been working on this since 2023, because it's going to make that core experience just feel so tired, right, in comparison. We talked about how it really seems like Campaigns of Death is not leaving anything on the table. Like it actually did show like there were going to be updates to core game content in some of the monster expansions, and they had showed that like it really feels like they're going to be revisiting every single story event in the Expansions of Death monsters rulebooks and lifting those up, right, and adding all these new story moments and stuff like that. So I feel very strongly that during the development of GCE and COD, like Team Death would have been looking through this game, the core game, all of the expansions. They're looking for these story moments to explore for strains and synergy cards, because that's like, you know, obviously the key kind of concept of those systems. Plus with seed patterns, right, they're looking for opportunities to have, you know, conditions for seed pattern cards. So I think this naturally extends to finding opportunities to improve the core game. So I think it seems to me incredibly likely that as GCE and Campaigns of Death have been worked on, that the core game is also being worked on in the background of that. It hasn't been announced, but like they're probably taking notes and going like, oh yeah, this is a good this is a good opportunity to adjust this, or this would make for a cool story option, or oh, we could do a seed pattern card using this settlement event or something like that, right? And really, I think the best evidence for that is the Razor Maggot event strange resource card that I was talking about earlier. Because if you go to the Herb Gathering story event, you can see like you roll a 1 on the table, your Razor Maggot bursts out of your chest or whatever it says. So it'd be so easy for them to update that and say like, gain the Razor Maggot strange resource card as a kind of consolation to your survivor being just completely nuked in that event, right? So currently, like the core games for Kingdom Death are sold out. So the team has reached this kind of point where now they either have to print additional core games, and they have this risk of having excess stock of 1.6 core games when they do release 2.0, or they have to hold off on releasing 1.6 and push this release of 2.0 forward. So I really think it's going to be the latter, because like the warehouse space of holding all these extra core games that they might not, and they probably require like a minimum print run of it, right? Plus the feeling, like I think there's also the consumer aspect of it, because like imagine they do a print run of 1.6, you've purchased that as a consumer, and then like a year later they release 2.0 and it's got like brand new sculpts, brand new cards, all this fun fancy stuff, and it's like, okay, well damn, like I wish I knew that 2.0 was coming earlier so that I didn't have to buy 1.6.
So here's the thing I say, because I know you're saying you don't want to print a whole bunch of 1.6s, and I would normally agree, right? I would normally, if this was any other game, if this was another board game company, you would be 100% correct. However, in the case of Kingdom Death, you have to remember, when we're talking of a 2.0 coming out that includes new monster sculpts and new narrative sculpts for the core game, you can get, in my opinion, I think you could print, I'm just going to say an even number. I'm not saying this is the correct number. Let's say you do this batch right now, and let's say you were right. Let's say 2.0 comes out next Gen Con, and you're going to push next Gen Con, you're going to push 2.0. You print 500 1.6s now, and then you just, because you need to make a 2.0 upgrade, you just print an extra 500 2.0 upgrades, and you just sell them together to get rid of your extra 1.6 stock.
Yeah, and I think there is a way to meet this that I was going to talk about a little bit more later.
Because
like how do they implement it, right? Because
I guarantee
they did go through this problem before with the 1.5 upgrade kit and 1.3, right? Like this isn't the first time they've dealt with this situation.
I think there's more players now who own 1.3, 1.4, 1.6 than there will be who buy 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you print the 1.6 and you just make the 2.0 upgrade packs. You just make extra, and then sell them together as 2.0, and you just be upfront about it. You just say, hey, look.
I don't know. I would love to see like how many people have approached them being like, hey, I want to buy the game, but it's sold out. Like, when are you like? I do think like, based on what he had said during Gen Con last year, there was quite a few. Sure. There was a lot of interest from new players, right? And the fact that they sold out of core games suggests that.
And they even mentioned it in the Gen Con update from last year. The current one, the current Gen Con update from 2024.
yeah.
The current Gen Con, they mentioned, they had a whole section where he said he wants to make a lifetime. No, what is it?
Like a lifestyle game, and mentioned onboarding new players and going to retail. You can't do that if you're not printing core games for 2 years. They're in a very challenging position right now because, and you and I have talked about this before, the cost of the best experience for Kingdom Death with core, Gambler's Chest, and soon to be COD will be definitely like surpassing. Well, I mean, like if you and I were to make a video later on,
I will always
recommending like what content do we recommend? Yeah, yes. Gambler's Chest is always on there.
But best is subjective. Even I don't want to make it sound like the core game's not great.
Sure. So even with core and Gambler's Chest, you're already approaching $1,000, right? Without any of the expansions, and then as soon as you add those in and Campaigns of Death, like we're getting exponential, especially when you're looking into expansions of Death 2
Yes.
content, right?
Yes.
So the game is becoming so price heavy that I really feel like they need to address that in second edition and maybe make some kind of product that allows players to enter into the game more easily. And I think this is where this idea of, like having these core sets, quote unquote, available to players makes a lot of sense. My thoughts on it, there's two products that have to be released. One is the actual 2.0 core game. So this would be the entire package all in, right? And then you would do a 2.0 update pack like they did for the 1.5 update pack. This would only include updated sculpts, the new cards, anything that's changed from
Let me ask you this.
1.6 specifically to 2.0. I don't think they'll make any accommodations to anybody that owns 1.5 or 1.3, nothing like that.
Let me ask you
only
this.
be 1.6 to 2.0.
What monster sculpts do you think need to be redone?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think White Lion and Screaming Antelope need to be redone. And I think the Phoenix is great. Like, it could probably use like the archival remaster treatment, and I think it'd be fine. I don't think the Phoenix needs to be redone. The Hand and Kingsman and Butcher should all be, if not redone, scaled up, so that
I
they
disagree on Kingsman.
Why is that?
Because it is a survivor.
No, I know, but it's still like smaller than the new scale of survivors. So it should be like same scale of new survivors, and then the Hand should be larger than survivors. But also the Gambler's Chest Hand is also not that much bigger. So maybe
I think you could get away with not redoing Goldsmoke Knight if you leave him in the game at all. I think you could get away with not doing Phoenix, and I think you could get away with not doing Kingsman. If it lowers the cost. If it doesn't lower the cost, then do Kingsman too.
So my implementation scheme, I've got like some optional kind of thoughts on this, and I'm curious what your thoughts, and actually anybody that's listening as well, like if you want to talk in the comments, like how do you think, this is going to work? But in my last point regarding kind of the cost of the game and how it's becoming quite prohibitive, I think, for new players to kind of get the whole experience, they should branch out. So there should be a 2.0 core game, but also like a core game experience box. I don't even call this, but like just a core game pack that would have all of the core game content exclusively. So we're talking about like dice, terrain, tokens, the core game fighting arts, disorders, generic settlement locations and gear, so like Bonesmith, Skinnery, Orc and Grinder, etc. And then like a trimmed down core rule book, and then like 4 starting survivor miniatures maybe, but no monster content, so no hit locations of AI, no monsters, no monster associated resources. All of that would be excluded from this.
I just thought of the perfect way to brand that.
Yeah, go for it.
You would do that. Yeah, it's 100% correct. And you do it the same way. You do it as a campaign box. The same thing like Bean Box for Gambler's Chest.
Mm-hmm.
You sell a campaign box with a new Disorder deck and a new Fighting Art deck. Pretty much just those 2 decks. Because those are the ones that are campaign specific.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Like,
then you could. Then it's like a save state for your campaign. You can have multiple campaigns.
Yeah, it lets them do this. It gives the team the flexibility on starting to make these standalone products, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they don't have to worry about somebody buying the core game. Like, somebody could just buy this core game pack to get these.
Package it with those sick plastic gear grids that they had at Gen Con.
Yeah, maybe. But like, this allows them to say like, hey, you need the core game cards, but you don't need to. You're not required to buy the whole core game for this. So like, they could have done, like they could do Inverted Mountain plus this pack, or like Abyssal Woods plus this pack, or Ringtail in the future plus this pack, right? And that would give them the flexibility to have that entire encapsulated experience without requiring somebody to buy like, a $400 like the core game $400 box set on top of this expansion box plus all of the monster expansions that are now required for these, as we've seen with Inverted Mountain, right? So it really helps them escape that kind of that requirement to have that for entry, right? And the cost can be quite low because there's not as many miniatures in it. It's mostly just cards and like, you know, settlement event sheets or settlement record sheets, survivor record sheets, whatever. And I think by making that, there's also an opportunity for them to do like trimmed down core game monster like expansions almost, or like a box set that complements this. So you would buy the box set and it would have, you know, like all the White Lion cards, all the Phoenix cards, all the Screaming Antelopes. They could even split it up like Quarry versus Nemesis monsters, whatever, right? Like there's a lot of ways that they can do it. But
yeah. See,
alternatively, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
It would be neat where you're going with this. I've thought about this too. If you could separate everything out of the core game, I think the only thing you need in the core game, and when I say need in the core game, the game needs it to function. And I think the only thing you really need in the core game is the hand and the watcher. Because the hand is used in Gambler's Chest. And the watcher is the core game campaign. But if you could get it down to a starting point of like 150 or like 125 or something, where it's just the hand and the watcher and then all the things else to run the game, the board and all that stuff, and then you just a la carted the nodes.
Yeah, I mean technically it's got to get a little. You need more though too, right? Because you also need the Phoenix and the Butcher because those are both in Gambler's Chest as well. So that's why I was kind of thinking like. Yeah. I was reflecting on, you know, does it make sense for them to do like the Phoenix expansion, the hand expansion, the Butcher expansion, where it's like that miniature, like resculpted, plus all the cards, they can update cards, do whatever. Yeah, and then like somebody could
everything because of stupid hunt events that give White Lion some life stuff gives White Lion resources.
Well, they would update that obviously for second edition, so it's monster agnostic, right?
Yeah.
Like, but you could buy now instead of buying the whole core game, like ecosystem. Like they could buy this core game pack that's just the cards, Gambler's Chest, and then the 3 expansions that they need in order to, you know, oh, I'm just going to play Gambler's Chest. Like that's the part of the game that interests me. Like I'm not interested in like White Lion or Screaming Antelope. You know, it gives players a lot more autonomy in like how they do it. I did want to make a callback to like one of your kind of ideas that you had before as well, where you had said like on their website, it's like you pick the core game pack and then it's like you hand select like what experience you want. Like if they really, really wanted to get really modular with the game, right? So it's like pick your node 1 quarry, pick your node 2 quarry, pick your node 3 quarry. It's like you could choose Crimson Croc or, you know, whatever, breaking stuff out of the Gambler's Chest. Whatever. I know that's probably never going to happen.
Here's the other thing. I don't actually know if Gambler's Chest serves well to break up. I think Gambler's Chest is actually great. As is. I think the Gambler's Chest is a little bit pricey, but I think the Gambler's Chest as is a great price point.
Oh, for sure. It comes like the amount of miniatures it comes with.
Yes.
Like it's
all
crazy,
the monsters
right?
and all that stuff, plus all the systems and all that stuff. The only issue with the Gambler's Chest is they're definitely leaning fucking really heavily on it.
But there are a lot of players. Like it's come up multiple times. Like people saying like, I just want Crimson Crocodile. Like, why are you guys going to sell that separately? So I think there's a demand for it, but I'll rein myself back a little bit with this whole kind of point
I think a la carte, it would be a great way to go.
But it obviously makes it more difficult because they have to carry more products, right? Like if you're breaking out all the core game monsters into separate quote unquote expansions as well, like even that is like, you know, 5 separate monsters. Now they've got to have in boxes, they've got to package, they've got to stock. It's not just the core game anymore. Yeah. It's you know, a lot of room and a lot of money to warehouse that stuff. And then if you have extras sitting around or whatever, like there's a lot of complications. It's easy for us to kind of go like, oh yeah, what about this? But the logistics of it are quite complicated.
Oh yeah. I think a la carte would be the dream, but I don't think it would ever happen. I mean, it's the same thing with print on demand. You might as well just go print on demand at that point.
Mm-hmm. But I do think at a minimum, this idea of like a core game pack that lets people break free of the buying the core game so they can get invested in just these new campaigns that are coming out is a really good direction for the game to travel, and it makes it way more accessible to new players, I think.
Yeah, what's the only one you could do that with? Like Inverted Mountain. That'd be the only one so far. You could do an Inverted Mountain starter pack where you could just buy everything you need for Inverted Mountain plus the core game minus the quarries and monsters and core, minus all that stuff. So yeah, maybe you look into doing an Inverted Mountain.
So that kind of leads us to the last discussion point, and it's what would 2.0 actually include? So I think you should take this one away first because I've been talking quite a bit already. So I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, I think we're going to differ. That's where we're going to differ.
Yeah, that's okay.
I think a card pack should address a lot of what 2.0 should be. Everything outside of like redoing monsters and miniatures and redoing the book. I think anything that if you want to do it in 2.0 and you want to change it without needing to update rules, I think you should do that in a card pack. So, like, I think there could be a 1.7 or whatever. I think there could be an interim card pack, basically, whatever they want to call it. You could even break it off. Because the 1.6 card pack was like everything. It had expansion updates, or errata, not updates, but then it had core game update. You know, you could probably do a legendary card pack that had a bunch of errata, and then just do another card pack that's core centric. I think you could probably get away with that, doing two different products. But I think core-centric stuff, like, mainly I think you could take aspects of Gambler's Chest and get them into the core game without much fuss. Mostly the character innovation card. I know there's rules in the Gambler's Chest book to how to use the thing, but if you go, like, there's never rules in the core game for how to use, like, I don't know, all the innovations. I can't think of what Nightmare Training or whatever. Right. I think the character card is straightforward enough that if you just put the innovation in there to the core game update, because of all those white boxes now that are coming with character cards, I think having the character card and the drafting table trapped in Gambler's Chest is detrimental.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Because all the expansions need to move forward with it, right? Like Frog Dog and Black Knight also include seeds, and we know that, well, we don't know, but we've seen that patterns are going to be in Red Witches and Pariah, and we can just assume that there'll probably be seeds in Screaming God. I don't know if there's seeds in... I have no reason to not think that there'll be seeds in Red Witches and Pariah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty... I think it's fair to assume that's going to be included in everything going forward.
You could even, if you wanted to, like for the character... For my notes here for character innovation, I've written down some, like, primer, right? Because you don't want to just include just the innovation. You could include 4 or 5 character cards. I know it's not enough to use with it, but for 2.0 you could flesh it out. But for primer cards, you do the characters that are in the core game, right? You give a character card to Old Joe, give one to Young Rachel, give one to
that's a good idea, yeah.
Inti, you give one to Macy, and then you give one to Urza, Lucy, Zachary, and Alistair, and then you've got yourself like 8 cards.
I'd love that, actually. They definitely deserve their own character cards.
So, yeah, you just do that. That'll give you enough of a deck as a primer. I think the Indomitable Trait card, that updated one from Gambler's Chest, no reason for that not to be in there, since white boxes are using. Then there's like a lot of there's a lot of errata that needs to be done, right?
Yeah, I think like the character cards, I agree that those should exist, but I think that's like a card pack is not the appropriate place to put it.
No, like I said, you could put that in 2.0, but if you're gonna move the character innovation, you need a primer. You can't just have the innovation blank. You need cards in there if you're gonna put it in 2.0. Right. You can't
I agree. Like they would still need to, like, I can see them putting designs and dandelions, a story event for seed patterns, into the core game rulebook.
Yes, but I was approaching this. as this card pack. Card pack only, you wouldn't be able to put that rule book in there, right? You just do
Right.
you just do a little
Like a rule sheet, yeah, or in the
or
booklet
the
that
card
they
with
include or
with the
whatever.
QR code.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair too, because that's all on the
Because it's
website
card
now
pack.
too.
I was specifically the card pack fixes, which would be just cards. So this would be a no book update thing. Then
Okay,
you think,
so for like moving past the card pack, what do you see 2.0 as being? Like what do you see included in it outside of, this interim change that you're expecting?
sure. So these are things that 2.0 I think is the minis. For sure. 100%. You get White Lion, Lope, Phoenix, Lantern, Leather, Rawhide, narratives. Just those. I guess, yeah, you do new Urza. You do the new starting survivors. I don't think you redo Old Joe and T Macy and all. I don't think you redo those, but whatever. If you think I know you've already said they redo them all, so then you redo the unarmored ones too as well. But whatever. So those, yes. And then the monsters. I don't think you need to redo Phoenix. I don't think you need to redo Goldsmoke Knight. I don't think you need to really redo Kingsman that much, but sure. The cost is probably negligible. You should just redo it. So outside of Phoenix and Goldsmoke Knight, then really will be in there. Then lots of things to make the game node acceptable, to get things monster agnostic. So you have to fix like life principles, you have to fix reward tables, and you have to fix the way certain events tie into one another. Like Gregalope, for example, you need the strategist fighting art, a thing that you're never going to get ever on arcs because you're not going to vault list for strategist.
Yeah, that's fair.
So you need to do things like that. You need to redo the wording on some of the things. Probably want to redo some of the hunt events. I don't think every hunt event should be referencing like getting Twilight swords and stuff. I think that should be exclusive to the pillars now. You do that, you find a new way to do that with the pillars. Like they're doing with the current card pack is adding the pillar card for Hooded Knight. I think you just include that in 2.0. Then you just leave Hooded Knight in the core rulebook, but you don't automatically always put it on the timeline. Then you remove Dream and Nightmare from the hunts that force Twilight swords into your things, because Twilight swords don't help you do anything besides fight the Watcher. So it's when you have this basic hunt event table. Some principles reward White Lion stuff. You fix some White Lion hunt events that trigger outside of what is it, like Dead Antelope, that triggers an ambush of a White Lion. You don't want that all the time. You need it to be node agnostic. Just things like that. That's what I think 2.0 will need to be. And then I don't know how you fix cooking, but cooking is going to be an issue. I think cooking's fine as is if it was supported. I think the issue with cooking is that no expansion supported it, rather than cooking being an issue.
Right. Well, Sunstalker a little bit, but
Yeah.
not enough though. Not enough to make it count. So yeah, I agree. Like I definitely do think we'll see hunt event table adjustments. Like we got quite a few from 1.3 to 1.5. So I think it's very likely that we'll see a continuation of that. And I agree as well about like the Twilight Sword stuff, because that story is important to people of the Lantern, but it's not to the rest of the campaigns. So if they were able to pull that out into like a Wanderer or something like that with the Twilight Knight, like that would be, I think, interesting, or a good way to handle that.
Like I said, they had the pillar cards already coming in the pack that adds Hooded Knight. Just make it that.
Mm-hmm. It's just how do you get those story moments from the hunt events into the experience, right? Like where it fits,
I think
right? Like
that whatever card is coming with Campaigns of Death, we've seen it. It's the Lantern card, the People of the Lantern node card that just goes in the core game, and then the core game book just says this. You don't even need to explain the node system in the core game because who cares?
But I mean, like, even like if they didn't take those, like if they're taking those hunt events out of the hunt event table, they should still exist somewhere, right? They need to be referenced in some way. Like that story is important to the story of the Watcher Twilight Knight relationship, right? Like on the lore stand.
I think you just add a clause. If you're playing People of the Lantern, if not, roll again.
That's a lazy way to fix it. Sure, I guess.
But that's literally how they have Golden Ember. It's if you don't have a final lantern, roll again.
I think it would be really cool, and even that, like, should it be something else, right? Or I don't know.
You mean final lantern, or not? You mean Golden Ember?
Yeah, because it's taking up like a slot in the hunt event table, where maybe it should be like a special hunt event that's added to the deck or something. Like once you've gained final lantern. I don't know.
I thought about
there's lots of ways to do it.
If you're ever gonna entertain making the hunt events cards, you do it in 2.0.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, he's mentioned that in an update before, right? Like the idea.
I don't like that because as someone who's tried, like, as a kid playing Magic and then learning that you don't want anything other than a 40 card deck, learning the hard way, I don't want to be shuffling a 100 card deck ever in my life ever again. So I don't agree with that, but sure.
Not an EDH fan, are you?
No.
So one of the things I do see being added, though, is just how, like, Gambler's Chest, and you were talking about this a little bit, like Gambler's Chest has the Scout and Arc hunt tables. So very easily we could see like a Savior hunt table being added. I think that would really give the Savior aspect to People of the Lantern a lot more character. But I didn't write this down, but like when you were discussing it, it's like, okay, do you have like a Twilight Knight, like apprentice or whatever, squire, however you want to word it, do they have their own hunt event table? So it's like once you get the Twilight Sword, now you're rolling like on this specialized hunt table that's added to the
I think
the
we'll
deck
see this
as well.
I think we'll see this with Gatherism.
Yeah, I think like they really hit a sweet spot with the Scout Arc hunt tables, and I think we'll see that more often with like these specialized types of survivors.
Yep, especially I think Gatherism for sure. I think that Gatherism thing might be a hunt table of 10 cards, not just like a mineral event, mineral gathering event. You know what I mean? Like it won't be like one table,
not 10 cards, but it'll be like 10 events
results. Yes.
Yeah. Right. Anything else that you think is going to get shoved in?
Yeah, we can talk about the elephant in the room last. I was going to save it, but we need to talk about Kingsman. One, you got to decide what you're doing with King and Kingsman. I think all the stuff that's in Gambler's Chest, either that's core upgrade, the new Regal armor specific. That's what I'm talking about today. Either that's core game or that's King specific. You gotta decide. I think it's King specific because of the hush mechanic. But if that stuff's King specific, you gotta rework the cursed gear, the Regal gear. You gotta do something about it. But more specifically, you gotta figure out a way to get Sync Strike into the game, and you gotta make Kingsman AI cards all Synchronic Strike. It will fix so much of it. There's so many times I see in the community asking, how the hell does Reach 2 work with the Kingsman? What if it steps one space back? Does it just not attack because it's not targeting anybody? Where do you stop? How do you move this? Synchronic attack. Every single card for Kingsman needs to be Synchronic attack. If you're going to do it in a card pack, you put Synchronic attack just like you did with Designs of Dandelions. You put Synchronic attack on a website, and you include a QR code in your pack, and you include a new AI deck for Kingsman. And then you can get rid of that trait with Reach 2 that explains Reach 2 and how it moves forward and then steps one back. You just get rid of all that. It's so confusing.
See, I think like that's got to be relegated to 2.0. It's too big of a lift. It's too big of a lift for a card pack to have an entire AI deck redesigned.
No, I agree. But I agree it's got to be done.
It's got to be done, but I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. I don't think it's going to be COD or...
There's plenty of things now that do it. There's knowledges that talk about sync strikes. There's gear that revolves around when a monster synchronized strikes. There's so many things that would make Kingsman a nicer, cleaner node. For example, I might use Kingsman in a game where I have knowledge observations that require me to take hits or dodge from a synchronic attack, or if I had gear that benefits from being synchronic attacked, or if I had any kind of synergy that you can do. Not to mention, like I said, just the fact that no one can ever figure out how that trait works for Kingsman. It would just be so much easily solved with synchronic attack.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of potential updates. Like, I think Screaming Antelope has good potential for using like Pursue, for example.
Sure.
Like Screaming Antelope also has that one hit location that kicks your weapon out of your hand
for disarm.
Like that's a disarm token, 100%. Right?
Oh, I agree.
That's getting updated.
Yep, I agree. Disarm could go right into it.
Like White Lion has great opportunity for Pursue, like Pursue synergy versus grab mechanic, and like as being able to get something that allows like a survivor to pursue as a synergy or like a counterplay to like the grab mechanic. I think that would be really cool.
Yes.
And I mean, I do expect the updated Regal armor to be included in the card pack versus.
Oh, okay.
Well, I would see it being included in both, right? So the card pack, I would see like things like the new Indomitable trait, the character innovation, the drafting table innovation, and then the Regal gear. Those kind of things would be like appropriate for the card pack, but also appropriate for 2.0. And whether that just means like making new opportunities for Hushed, like that's a good opportunity for like updated hunt events, right? Like, like if your survivor is Hushed, they gain +2 to this roll,
is just a
or
point.
whatever, right?
You could do fun stuff too. Like if you're if there should be like fun things that you put in 2.0, that things that incentivize people wanting to buy, because you have to talk about what's the price point for this, right? I think this is going to be like 150 because you're getting all that plastic, right? So there should be fun updates that are really, really easy to do that don't really mean anything to new players. New players would never even notice, but an other player would get a huge amount of value off these little bitty things. And that, like,
well, I think all the.
What did
Go ahead, sorry.
So for this, like, I'm talking alternate art founding stone.
Okay.
And
just like really like back, like deep dive kind of stuff.
Yeah, things a new player wouldn't even notice that aren't new, but a person who's buying the upgrade for 2.0 would notice. Right? They're like, oh, cool, I got alternate art. I got, you include numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 of your randomizer cards. Just make those like Allison, Percival. Just make them different the second time around.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah.
I do think we would get it even like more than that though. Like there'd be like new hit location cards, new AI, new traits, like new mechanics for old monsters that a new player, they'd be like, okay, that's just how you play it. But like an old player, it'd be like a refresh, right, of these monsters, and make it like, oh, it's exciting to fight the White Lion again because it's got monster specific terrain cards, or it's got its like everything. I would hope that they would revamp everything and like make things more lore like heavy, because like to me, like for example, Screaming Antelope doesn't feel that interesting as far as a monster goes, right? Like, but I think Screaming God is going to raise it up a little bit, and then if they did 2.0, they could even make it more interesting and make it more weird. And for a monster that's got a giant mouth on its stomach, it's like, okay, it's just a goat with
that was the other. Now that I've scrolled through my notes going back to the Kingsman, because I scrolled past it originally, I also forgot to mention that they should take the time to put crests, mountain lion specific, or not mountain lion, White Lion specific fighting arts to the deck. Screaming Antelope, or just take like of the 20, just decide 2 of them are White Lion specific. I know, or
just add more or whatever, right?
Add more.
Use the keyword, like they're developing this keyword system. We've seen it with Black Knight, we've seen it with Frog Dog, etc., etc. So I think we would get that, and like maybe more secret fighting arts. Like I think we're going to see that with the expansions of Death updates and campaigns of Death. And again, this is going to be one of these things that makes the core game feel so tired and like.
Yeah, it's an odd position to put yourself in. It's the same thing in Gambler's Chest, because the core game updates that come in Gambler's Chest even not just core game updates. Like, what do you do with those Flower Knight cards that are in Gambler's Chest? How do do those get put into?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. So
Those should also be probably put into the card pack or into COD, one or the other. But it is weird. They're so like such a weird thing to just have in there, right?
Yeah.
So we talked about Gold Smoke Knight being redone, and I think, when that happens, I don't know, but in our video we had talked about the Verdant Lord specifically, right? And how the update had said like Verdant Lord is going to be this brutally difficult monster, the most difficult monster in the game, but then you're expected to go fight these finale monsters afterwards.
Yeah, because it's labeled as a core. I think that was a mistake. I think it's a finale.
Yeah, and it might be, but I mean, we have to work with the information we've been given.
Okay.
Like, so if it is a core monster, right? Like the experience of fighting Gold Smoke Knight or God Hand or Parasite Queen, it's so watered down after fighting a monster that difficult, right?
Well, here's the other thing. Just to toss this in, nothing specifically says a core game needs to take place in Lantern Year 20. Maybe it's just a core that takes place in Lantern Year 30.
That's fair, I guess. But would you still have a finale monster, or would that like completely finale?
Well, we haven't seen because we haven't seen the node cards. Maybe the node for when you put that together. Like, we haven't seen the timeline for Battle of the Green Knight. We haven't seen the faded or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
Whatever. What were they called? Destined, and then like variant. I forget what were the two called.
I don't know. That's too long ago now. But I know what you're talking about. Like.
But it could say, when you draw your core, it could say, your core is Verdant Lord. Do not add a finale. Just like the other ones say.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah.
That is completely fair point. Yeah, that's fair. But if it isn't like that, I definitely think there would be a need to kind of boost Gold Smoke Knight, right? Like, it probably needs to be more difficult. Gold Smoke Knight might be updated at some point or revamped, whether that's an Ivory Dragon or 2.0 is to see.
Yeah.
But what do you think about the Watcher specifically? The Watcher is such a key concept to Kingdom Death. I feel like its attacks and stuff should be like way more brutal. The Twilight Sword makes it exceptionally easy to fight the Watcher, right? Like, it becomes like almost a joke. And that's part of the design for the story, as like Twilight Knight's role, like with the Watcher. Again, we talked about this earlier, but I feel like it shouldn't make it that easy. So one of the things I have written down for something I'd like to see in 2.0 is arc support. So I'm thinking like they could add like a watched core philosophy or something like that. It wouldn't go like crazy into it like Gambler's Chest. So you'd have the core philosophy, maybe like a couple side philosophies like rounded out.
I think there should be one, but I don't think it should be part of 2.0.
What would you think it'd be part of? Just like a separate product?
Yeah, well, mostly because I think the Gambler's Chest is a really good product, and I don't think it should be broken up.
But do you not think... No, I'm not saying break out any of the existing philosophies from Gambler's Chest. There would be like the one new core and then two side new ones. So it really incentivize players to buy Gambler's Chest, right?
I think it should be like heliocentrism. And
that's fair. That's possible too.
I think it should be a standalone, but mostly because I want core to be as cheap as possible for as many people to entry point. I don't want to blow it with more 20, even if it raised the price $20 or $30, and you're like, you're getting a deal on the $50 or the $60 core philosophy.
I'm just trying to think about things that could be added to like.
Yeah, but I don't want the price to go up.
Bring it more in line. I mean, likely it's going to go up regardless of.
I know, happens. But I don't want reasons for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair. But I'd rather have the content to justify it. You know, if we're not going to get it.
No, I agree.
I know what you're saying. I agree. So, and then the other stuff that I think I could really see getting added is, and I know you disagree with me on this, but I do think this is to me the elephant in the room conversation is the GCE stuff. So like we already talked about, character innovation, drafting table being added to the card pack. And I think that would naturally be included in 2.0.
Yeah.
But I also think we would see like outskirts. We would see the scout discoveries for all the core game monsters.
I thought about scouts. I would rather you find a way to make the 666 bundle stick around forever. Then break up Gambler's Chest.
Yeah. And that's definitely a option as well, right?
I think that 666 should just be. I know maybe you can't do it. Maybe you do. Maybe you make it maybe you find a way to make sure that your 2.0 remake can be bundled with Gambler's Chest for about 666 to keep that around forever.
It's just so cheap, especially with two new like if it's GCE plus 2.0, it's just everything's too new.
Yeah, I know.
At that cost.
But I think Gambler's Chest is just.
I know where you're coming from, and it's like it's hard for me to. It's hard. Like I'm so torn over it because I was saying, like they need to have this core game experience kind of thing that separates itself from the actual like full ecosystem to make it more approachable as a cost, but I just don't see them being able to have it for something so cheap because you're looking at like two sets that are like, how much are they in the US right now?
I don't know.
Like separately? I guess core game sold out.
Yes.
Okay, anyway.
Separately, what they were was $400 and $450.
Yeah, so you're already getting like a $200, $300, $250 discount on it.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I think
that's crazy.
I would like a way to see those bundled together.
And I think they probably would be bundled, but I don't know if you're going to get the 666.
No, but I'm talking about I'd rather see them bundled for a discount than I would break up Gambler's Chest. Is what I'm saying. It doesn't need to be 666. I think it's better to just try to make an enticing price point to sell the bundle regularly.
So I've got like the biggest question mark for me out of this is encounters. So even more so than scouts, I think encounters probably should be brought into the core game as well. Like they've already talked about wanting to release standalone encounters, correct?
Yeah.
But I don't think it's reasonable for them to include an encounter board with each standalone encounter. So they'll either have to sell an encounter board separately on the store with like a rules booklet or something like that for encounters. Or the more likely option I can see is that this encounter board is included in the 2.0 core game, like the update pack. Everybody's able to get an encounter monster, the encounter board, and then probably like, I imagine like he talked about a giant crab spider encounter monster that he wanted to make. Something like that. Like something that's like not super lore heavy. There isn't like a lot of lifting to it. Just a very, very generic encounter monster that's able to slide into the game. Like to me, that's a really good solution for having encounters accessible to everybody and then being able to release standalone encounters in the future.
I think I'd rather see it as a system. I'd rather see the encounter system being sold standalone the first time. Does that make sense?
No.
Let me see if I can. I'd rather the first standalone. I'd rather the first encounter that gets sold comes with a box, and it's called the encounter system, featuring Crab Spider, and then from that point forward, you never release another board.
But what if you don't want the crab spiders?
Then you don't. Why would you? Then you don't care.
But you want the other encounters. Like it's.
Well, then I guess you're hoping that you get the other ones that come with the board. I guess you're hoping that you're getting Gambler's Chest, getting Ram. I say Ram like that because I think Ram's going to become a dungeon.
For sure.
And then you get Inverted Mountain, and
yeah.
You get Abyssal Woods, because I think Abyssal Woods still has the Lotus, right? No. Well, either way.
The Luna Moths, I
Luna
think,
Moths, that's it. And then the other one was Oblivion Mosquito with the pupae, right?
Yeah.
Is that the only
But
four?
I think it's unreasonable for those to all include the
well, that's already going to happen.
But I don't think they're going to. That's why I'm saying it's got to be like something more accessible. Like if it's in the core game, that's accessible to everybody because like all players are going to say, hey, I actually want the core game update, right? So it's like, there you go. Now you get encounters as well, versus like this expansion has an encounter board. This expansion has an encounter board. Like that's the more costly version. If you're talking about lowering prices for things, now including an entirely new board just to accommodate like those encounter monsters is raising the price of those expansions up, right?
Then how about you make uh, the crab part of core, and you don't release it by itself.
I think like
That way, people who
your suggestion of the crab monster as the encounter system separately is a better solution than including an encounter board in every single product that has an encounter.
I don't want to buy.
But I think the core game is the better solution than the standalone product.
I don't want to buy the 2.0 upgrade kit and get a board I'll never use.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of where GCE owners like that's how like Gambler's Chest has kind of made it messy, right? Like it has, like I said earlier, like it's pushed the game past this 1.6 level, and you've got all these systems that are like supposed to support the core game, but they're trapped in this $400 expansion. So it's tough, right? Like they either have to break it out or expect players to buy that, which I don't think is necessarily the fairest way for on the consumer side of things to do it. So it really comes down to this question: are they planning to lean completely into this lifestyle game kind of mentality, or are they planning to lean into this like how do we onboard new players and support new players having an easier time getting into the game? I don't know, TBD, I guess, right?
Yeah.
My last point on what I want to see in 2.0 is that the Gambler's Chest is such a good complement to the core game storyline that I want to see it reverse complement the Gambler's Chest. So when I was having discussions on Lantern's Reign, people were saying, okay, well, what about a new Node 4 quarry for the core game? And I think that's a great idea, right? Like the core game doesn't have a Node 4 right now. So the perfect one, in my opinion, would be the Lamplighter. So this was already talked about in the past as like, it was supposed to be a planned quarry monster during the core game development. It ended up being featured in the showdown phase rules artwork. You can see it walking through the mist in the background. So that kind of feeds back into like the Lamplighter's role with the scouts and its relationship with the Kingsmen. And I just think it'd be a really good way to kind of counter the King as the Node 4 in the Gambler's Chest. That's more of like a wish list item, I think, but I think it'd be a really good opportunity. Even if it wasn't the Lamplighter, like some other monster as a Node 4 would really round out that experience, I think. Is there anything else that you want to add, that you want to see as content? Anything else you want to talk about?
I think just because I don't know if I made it super clear, but I would like for them to find a way to make it not. I know we both touched on the topic of it being monster agnostic, but I would also like it to also be so the White Lion, the Lope, the Phoenix, or mainly like Butcher. Butcher needs like an intro event so he feels more like a node.
Oh yeah.
Maybe Hand gets a new intro event. Maybe because there's always like, well, I guess we don't know, but we don't know how like Inverted Mountain's going to go. We don't know how Abyssal Woods is going to go. Maybe they won't. Maybe I know with people of the Dreamkeeper, you just can't use Kingsman. So who cares about Armored Stranger and stuff, right?
Right.
But like. With like Hand specifically has a lot of things it asks for. It asks for like Nightmare Training, Clan of Death, Lantern Halberd, or Guidepost, not Lantern Halberd, Guidepost. Survival. No, that's Survival. Is it Survival of the Fittest? Yeah, I think it is Survival of the Fittest. There's lots of things that it asks for specific that are core game specific, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe if there was a way to make Hand more agnostic, or not agnostic, more node ready. Because it has intro event, but it's so tied to the core game.
Yeah, it's like cool. It's got to be more like People of the Lantern Tide, or less, I guess. Maybe,
yeah,
right?
less.
Yeah, because it has such a role in Dream.
Yeah, Butcher getting an intro event, Lion getting an intro event. I'd like to see.
Yeah,
I know this will probably be in COD, but maybe you could put it in the core game. No, this would probably be better for COD, but like the cat finds a box, so it's compatible with Ark Survivors. Maybe
right.
redo like the first day event, which is tied to Lion, but also talks about arriving in a lantern horde. Maybe include one that's a little, because People the Dreamkeeper is pretty much the same thing. It just mentions a protective aura. Maybe instead of mentioning Lantern Horde, you just say protective aura. Make things that are more like node ready.
I think I think the core game having that is fine. I think Campaigns of Death has to make new first day events for People of the Stars and People of the Sun.
Oh yeah, I think Gorm
like have... that to me is like the better way to handle it.
Oh yeah, I think Gorm will have a first day event. Gorm probably will even have a. I think we're seeing all those are getting Devour the White Lion. Gorm's getting flattened, or it's just called Crush the White Lion or whatever. But
yeah, but I think for as far as like first day story events go, I think or settlement events, sorry, it makes more sense for like the campaign expansions to have like alternative versions of them than for the core game to have an agnostic version of it, I guess.
Yeah, I would like to see a Butcher intro event.
For sure. It's weird that Butcher didn't get an intro event.
Not really
in 1.6.
When you think about it, because he just he's a horror. He's like Jason Voorhees. He just shows up.
Yeah, but it's like he needs more lore, and that's to me that's the problem. It's like it'd be
for the
way
time.
better to have like a reason for him showing up, right? Like every other monster does, and it's just like he's just like, hey, I'm here. By the way, I'm going to
for the time. I think it was fine. Because you're just more scared of his menacing presence. You know what I mean? It's like, what is this guy? So I think at the time, but now, the game's evolved, like you said.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, so that's I think a pretty comprehensive discussion on 2.0. We'll probably see more allusions to it. I don't think we're going to see it outright called out in the schedule. I don't think it's going to be something that's ever announced. It'll just be like, oh, by the way, here's 2.0, dropping it.
Nah. I think it will be announced.
So, yeah, I think that's a good place to end our conversation on 2.0. As always, like I'm always interested in people's comments on what they think should be included. I want to see some big essays in the comments on kind of the plans. Is 2.0 justified? Is it not justified? Should they wait? Should they push it fast? What do you want to see? What do you not want to see?